All right, welcome to the first Temple Storm Arena podcast. I'm here with Murphs and Hafu, and we're going to be talking about some changes that are coming to Hearthstone and possibly to Hearthstone Arena. First, let's introduce our guest, Murphs, aka Mr. Numero Uno.
Thank you,
Um,
thank you. Nice to be here.
welcome. And Hafu as well. She's currently the she has the record for the 110, and we all know Hafu. I don't think she even needs an introduction, but say
Thanks.
hello, Hafu.
Hey, what's up, guys?
I like how you mentioned currently, as in like I'm gunning for this. Like, you have it right now.
Oh, I am. You're really keen on noticing that. It's good. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I wanted to talk to you guys about the new standard versus wild format change that's coming to Hearthstone. What do you guys think about it? And do you guys think this is a good change? How long have we been waiting for this kind of change to balance the meta?
Sure. I guess I'll begin. So we're talking in terms of constructed right now, and like we all knew this was bound to happen at some point. Like you look at a game that's more established, Magic the Gathering, and you see why it has these. It's been putting out like core sets and then expansions and sort of refreshing every once in a while. You just get too many cards, too many combinations, and it restricts the designer's sort of freedom, right? So it was bound to come at some point. I think this is a little bit earlier than I expected, but like once they announced it, I was like, oh, cool. It's just something that they had to do eventually.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
I mean,
Go
I
ahead.
think I haven't really played other card games, so I don't have any familiarity with this kind of thing. But I actually didn't think about it until today, because I didn't know that it could ever apply to Arena. I guess I'm not up with the news, but I'm actually kind of excited now that that seed's been planted in my mind. I really hope
Hmm.
they do something about it because Arena's the meta has changed so much with all the Nax cards, and it's a lot faster, and it's all about like board control, and it's a lot stickier. Um, you're dealing with hard to remove minions, and on one end, I'm a little sad because I feel like it's gonna go back to mage. Mage is number one and a strong number one because of their AOE's. But I also think stuff like Warlock is gonna shine really well too because they also have a decent amount of AOE's.
Yeah, and this is just like a natural thing that happens in card games. Like the power creep becomes a little bit too much, and they need to remove some cards from the pool to make it a balanced game and more of a fair game. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if this change were to come to Arena, like how do you think it should happen? Do you think that we should have like separate like months where we play different expansions, or do you think there should be two different sets of arenas where one is more of a competitive one and the other one has all the cards are in the pool and more for fun?
Do you think there are enough players in Arena to have different brackets, I guess?
That's a good question.
Um, so the way I think about it is like this. The arena right now is sort of a unfortunately it's seen as sort of a more open and fun mode than constructed, which is like the super serious tournament mode, right? If looking at it from Blizzard's perspective, I think what they would do is sort of position it so that the arena has this sort of like fun, free mentality to it. So I think what they would do is just sort of mix and match expansions. Like this month, it's going to be Nax and GVG. They'll pair one of the small expansions with one of the big expansions. If they do that, and so they'll keep classic, and then they'll be like, all right, now it's Nax and GVG, and then it's going to be like TGT plus BRM. And then they'll mix and match like that, and with consideration for cards, right? Like you don't want to give paladins like Keeper of Oldemon plus like Murloc Knight and just make the
Really?
arena
Because
crazy.
they already did that.
Well, okay, they don't
It's
want to
already
do
live.
that
I think
while
what Merce is saying is like some expansions are a little bit better for certain classes, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, definitely.
I understand. I'm not really sure Blizzard is going to balance around Arena, though. I mean, this is kind of how it's always happened.
Yeah.
The Arena is the like most players play constructed, so they're going to balance for most players.
Well, let me ask you
And
this. Like Arena, once Moss started his 110 challenge, a lot of people started to get interested in Arena, right? I think we could say that with our like own viewer counts going up a lot during these challenges. It seems that the community actually does enjoy a more competitive and like try hard mode of Arena. So I wouldn't count Arena out when we're talking about a more of a competitive mode.
I mean, I'm really interested to see the numbers, like how they fluctuated, because I didn't actually think Twitch is a good representation of the total players of Hearthstone.
Sure.
Like not everyone watches Twitch, unfortunately. I mean, I would like everyone to watch Twitch, but
Yeah.
I think the reality is that only a very small portion actually watch streams. So I'm not sure it's actually made like a big enough impact.
So you think
I,
there's just
I
not
think
enough interest in the Arena for Blizzard to actually like use resources to balance Arena?
Not that there's no interest, but um, that constructed is more popular. And if 90% of your player base, or I made that number up, but if the majority is playing constructed over arena, then you're going to focus on that. Sorry,
I
Marks, I
did.
keep cutting you off.
No. I think Ratsma brings up an interesting point in that because it's sort of like what comes first, chicken or the egg kind of thing, where we don't see as much interest in the arena, but that might be because there hasn't been a competitive space
Exactly.
made for the arena. Like, and once you create this competitive space, and we've artificially created it with
Right.
110, if Blizzard officially creates it with sort of
A
this
leaderboard.
yeah, a
Yeah.
leaderboard, I think you'd see people gravitate towards it because at the core of what Hearthstone is, it is a PvP game, right? You're only facing other players. Like, there's no. If this were just like you playing the next Ramus Adventures, there would be no Hearthstone. Hearthstone would just be like a game that got no views, that got no publicity. But because it is an inherently competitive PvP game, it has such a large following. So I think if Arena were to shift towards that in some way, I do see more potential for Arena.
Yeah, and what would you guys like to see though? If they were to implement like two different sets of arenas, or a month-to-month basis, different expansion set arena. How would you guys like to see this implemented?
I think just 2 expansions at a time sounds fine. I mean, I I think it'll be interesting to see how the meta changes, and you'll have to adapt pretty quickly and figure out how
Yeah.
to play and how to draft.
Yeah, I like that as well. It forces people to adapt, right? Just like how constructed players adapt to a meta, um, arena players really only adapt to we have to adapt to a meta as well, but it's not as fast changing sometimes. Like
Sure.
the arena meta is more stable just because no one is innovating new decks and putting it out there, and suddenly the meta kind of goes in a cyclical manner. I think the difficulty comes from sort of like what do you implement after that point, right? Like a ranking system. In constructed, ranking is very easy, and it's sort of non-controversial. In arena, you get into questions such as like, well, not everyone plays the same classes evenly. Are you gonna put them separately? Like, what if people don't play enough? Like, what about your sample size? And that we open up like a Pandora's box there, and I'm not exactly sure how to
I
do
mean,
that.
we already see that, right? We already have a current arena streamer leaderboard, and I just have to give props to the guy who does it. I think his name is
Hmm.
Sexting Shakespeare. That's so much work,
Oh yeah.
like to get VODs. I mean, I'm definitely too lazy to do that, but to get VODs from like I don't know how many people he tracks, like 15, 20 people
Yeah, he's
every
definitely doing a
single day.
service.
That is pretty nuts.
But I think if it, like going back to what you said, Merps, if we do create a leaderboard, and I think this is at the core of competition, right? This is where you find an
Right.
edge. If there is no like separate leaderboard for classes, then maybe we should be playing the best class. Maybe that's the first pick where we pick the best class is like the smartest thing we can do. It's all taking advantage of how to get on top of that leaderboard. But if
Right.
no leaderboard exists, then how can we try to beat it? Because that's what it is. We're trying to just get an edge wherever we can, right?
Right.
That's true. I think the main difference though between arena and constructed is that in constructed you can make up for your losses because like think of it this way: you get to rank 5, right? And then you want to play like just a crazy deck like Murloc Druid. So you play Murloc Druid, maybe you stagnate at rank 5, maybe you move down to rank 7, but then you go back to Secret Paladin, you go back to Tempo Mage, and then you go back to rank 5. None of that mattered, right? It washes out. That never happens in the arena. So you pick like Rogue, Paladin, and then you pick Shaman, and you get like 4 wins with it. That stays with you because that permanently lowers your
Well,
average,
you could just
right?
reset it every month, just like constructed, right? Give people
Yeah,
that blank
exactly.
slate and say, okay, this month
True,
I'm gonna
true.
play every class, and this month I'm gonna play top 3. I mean, I definitely didn't care about my stats when there was no challenge and there was
When
no
there were no
leaderboard,
stats. Yeah.
right? So I was like, oh, I mean, I
Yeah,
just don't
yeah.
even want to play Mage, Rogue, and Paladin because I feel like they're broken. And
Yeah.
I only started playing it once the challenge hit, and I was like, yep, these classes I have a full win above the lower classes, and they're definitely the strong ones, and you can see them shine, especially through the challenge. I think we can all agree that
Yeah.
you want to get Rogue first. Anytime you can pick Rogue, you pick Rogue. After that, Mage and Paladin are pretty broken. After that, Druid and Warlock. And if you have to play Shaman, Priest, Warrior, Hunter, well, good luck, because you're probably going to get 5 or less. I
I
mean,
mean, I think that's the
Yeah.
greatest part of this game. It's just, like if you want to play competitively, you can try hard every game. Or if you want to play for fun, you can try those, Murloc Druid decks
mhm.
and just like have fun. You know, there's no like right way to play it. And there's some good to that, but I myself, and I'm seeing that you guys agree as well, would like some kind of like leaderboard in the game, or like some kind of competition in game that we can try to like beat.
I like the
Right.
110 a lot. I mean, I obviously have good records in it, so maybe that makes me biased. But I liked it even before I had the record. I liked it when you had the lead, Ratsma. I think it's
Yeah.
I really like was excited to see how you did, and it gives people a purpose to watch not only our own streams, but gives us the purpose to watch other people's streams, and kind
Yeah.
of connects the arena community as a whole.
Man, I don't think you feel this as bad, but it's so devastating because it's such a long time. It takes like, if you're playing a lot every day, it takes like 3-4 days to complete the challenge, and then when you get so close, you're just like, okay, now I gotta start
I got
over.
to 96. I mean, I
Yeah,
know how it feels, but
yeah.
I mean, I have a run at 85. I did a 75. And yeah, I mean, it feels bad, but I don't want to beat the challenge anytime soon. I would like everyone to kind of struggle with it for a while because I think it's really good content. I mean, I think the hype will die once someone hits 100, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah, but another challenge could pop up by then, and I think just us talking about it and talking about like the struggle and sort of the light at the end of the tunnel, it really does show that a leaderboard would be massively successful for Hearthstone, right? Because it would sort of add to it, it would add in this suspense, and it would really add in this sort of competition, right? Where you want to gun for that guy, like Hafu, you said, when you saw that Ratsma had the high score for a while, you were gunning for that. And
I was already in
yeah,
that
it just
run when Ratsma got his
mhm.
high
yeah.
score, so it wasn't like I started
The
getting for
shortest
it.
shortest record.
I,
Yeah,
I was already like 40 points in 4, and he was like 48 in 4, something nuts. Just Ratsma was just
Right.
fucking going off, and it was awesome. I was like, oh man, I thought I had a good run, but no, I don't. And I just kind of got lucky where I got to repeat Rogue, and then I got to repeat Mage or something. I don't remember.
so going back to like the standard versus wild topic, if there were to be some kind of leaderboard, would you guys like to see it more balanced with the standard set, kind of like how they're doing it with constructed, or would you like just a leaderboard for what we have now? Do you
I
think it
think
needs to be balanced with the standard set?
just a leaderboard is fine, and anything that they want to do would be fine because the leaderboard is still a leaderboard. Like whether or not the game is super balanced towards certain classes, like it doesn't matter because everyone else has the same ability to choose the OPs as you do, and it's just all about your ability to adapt, right?
I mean, the same thing could be said about constructed, right? Where people can just, I don't know what the overpowered deck is in constructed right now, Secret Paladin. Like everyone could just play that class,
No,
right?
it's a bit different though because when you're like the three of us can all play rogue, right? And we can all be given the same draft, but the way we play and the way we draft would all differ. Whereas in constructed, I mean, yes, there's more innovation when there's changes to like what sets you're allowed to use, but it all eventually gets down to like the same meta, right? The same decks, more or less,
Okay.
give or take a few
Right.
cards.
So
No,
you would just like a leaderboard. You don't really care about if it is balanced with like standard set or what cards are in the leaderboard set.
right. I think the best players
Okay.
will get at the top every time.
Ooh, okay. What about you,
I
Merps?
think that yeah, so here's I don't think the standard format is necessary for Arena right now, but I can see it go to a point where, you draft and there's like no consistency, right? For a mage, you get a flame strike once every like 3 drafts, which I know might make some people very excited. Like all of these power cards that just don't appear, and you just have completely random drafts, and it's just like luck of the draw. But I think that takes away from the skill of the arena, right? When you have such dilution of cards.
True.
So I think right now we're still at a point where it's okay, right? But once you never see any hexes, once you never see any of these like classic cards that help define a class, like you're never gonna see a swipe from Druid. Like,
Yeah.
you draft a swipe and you're just like, oh my gosh, like yes, I hit my 1 in 5 chance to draft a swipe. But like once that happens, I think it just takes away from the flavor of the arena, right? Now it's just like, okay, you have all these like random just statted cards, and you just play them and with random effects, and once you have like shredders pop out, you're like, okay, instead of Doomsayer being like 1 in 100, I forgot exactly the chance of it. Now it's like 1 in 1,250, and then you have to calculate those odds. So I think it is necessary at a certain point, but maybe not now. Like I think constructed, it's needed sooner, and arena like maybe a year down
I
the line.
mean,
I agree with that. I
back
see that.
back in the day against a paladin, that was actually my example of people were like, how arena's so random, how do you deal with it? And I was like, well, on turn 3, let's say you have like a 3-3 out or a 4-4 out, and a paladin's on his turn 4. If he doesn't true silver you, he probably doesn't have true silver, right? Something like that. That's
Right.
an example that I would give. And I was like, then you can eliminate that from his hand, blah, 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 blah. You don't play around top decks. But now it's like, on turn 4, do you play around
There are just way
conjugate,
too many things to play around,
ultimate,
right? Yeah.
true silver, kings? Like, literally, there's no situation where a paladin really can't deal with.
And I think that makes
that's
it.
absurd.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately makes people gravitate towards those powerful classes because they
Oh,
keep losing to them.
absolutely, absolutely. But I'm
And
just,
if we,
I was agreeing with Merps's point that
oh yeah,
if there's too many options, then it kind of
Right.
dampens the skill because you can't predict when there's too many outcomes.
sure. I mean, I think we can all accept that arena is the more casual format.
Yep.
But if a casual player, maybe if you take a casual perspective to this, I think a lot of people would want to try different classes like shaman or hunter or warrior, one of the weaker classes, but they can't because they feel like they're just putting themselves at a huge disadvantage. So if there was like a standardized set for arena, you can go back to the classic days where you would see just as many shamans and priests as you would like paladins and rogues.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that would definitely be definitely be the result of it. And the tough thing is sort of because we're talking about barriers of entry for new players, right? But you also create a barrier of entry by sort of implementing standard because you have to figure out this new meta, right?
Sure.
And for players like us, we've not only do we remember sort of the meta that or the changes that came about from the release of like GVG, the game got faster. Nax didn't really change too much, but it did introduce some power cards. If you do this month by month, I think some newer players might be discouraged from playing, especially at the beginning of the month, or even at all, just because they're like, well, I don't really understand the impact of this, but I know that like I will be at a disadvantage because of my lack of understanding.
I mean, but that's also a time where people would experiment and maybe try out new cards and new combos or synergies in the deck. I think that kind of like just adds to the fun, the overall
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. Yeah.
And so, I mean, so how do you guys think would the community respond to, just like one of these changes, whether it be, changing it month to month with different eras of expansions, or, just having a standardized set? What do you guys think the community would like?
I think change.
I think the
Oops.
community is. Oh, sorry. I'll just say it quickly. I think the community is just ready for a change to the arena, and whether or we're talking about the community at large or the arena community. So I'll separate it out a little bit. I think the arena community is just ready for any change. You
Hmm.
know, we've had basically the same game, or sorry, the same format for since time began
Oh yeah.
with Hearthstone. And the overall community, I think they'll just appreciate something cool. You know, like you bring out you introduce Tavern Brawl, you introduce Standard, you do this, you do that. The overall community just likes that. You know, they like Hearthstone at its core, and if you add on bells and whistles to it, they'll like it even more.
Yeah, I agree. Just
Hafu?
any change would be wonderful. I think the more I don't know. Hardcore players would only appreciate the leaderboard. I'm not sure it's something for everyone. Like you said, I think it's more of a casual mode. So I selfishly would love a leaderboard, but I think for the good of all of Arena, probably just implementing these set changes would make it more flavorful, and even having one expansion have the bonus. Let's not even say we're taking out the other cards, but there's a big difference right now that TGT has like a 1.25% chance to get picked, right? I believe that's the number.
Right.
So you're seeing more like
Yeah.
mounted raptors and raven idols and druids, so they're a bit stronger, I would say, than in another set where I can't remember all the druid cards in each set. But you know what I mean? Like if we're seeing less keeper
Yeah.
of Voldemons, like I literally run into, I mean, we all have, right? 5 Keeper of Voldemon decks or
Oh
something
yeah, oh
insane, and
yeah.
you're like, what do you do? Like
Yep.
you literally can't play anything, and
Nothing's good against Paladin anymore, right?
right, and
Yeah.
it's just because they have that or like mages, ethereal conjurers. If they have like 4 of those, you're just like, what do I do? There's no way you outvalue that. There's just no way.
Right.
So I think just like changing, let's say Nax gets a 1.25%, like what happens, and I think you will see like a little bit of a difference with class strength.
Hmm. I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea if they make it kind of like Tavern Brawl, where like every week it's something, something crazy like addition, right? Maybe like Bullet Mode Arena for a week, or just a specific expansion for a week. I think that'd be great, fantastic. But all right, so let's play a fun game here, and we're all gonna role play as Ben Brode. And if we could make one suggestion to, if we were Ben Brode, how would we change the arena for the better? What
We
would,
can only make one.
just one.
One? That's it? Oh,
You're
you're killing me, man.
the biggest thing on your mind.
All right, Hoffa, you want to go first or should I?
I mean, in a perfect world, I just feel like this is never gonna happen. But in a perfect world, they just rebalance the cards with rarities, because some some of the epics are just trash, and some of the commons are just way too strong. And I think if you just flip some of the rarities, um, a lot of
Yeah, and you feel
problems
that a
would.
lot. Yeah,
Yeah,
you feel that a lot with like rare cards, right? Like the first card, like usually rares are like the best rarity, right? Would you guys agree with
yeah,
that?
and sometimes you get a bad pack, and you're like,
Yeah.
"What is this? I don't want
Exactly.
Ancient Watcher. I don't."
Yeah, and that's such a big difference from like a Sunwalker, which completely just carries games
Exactly.
sometimes.
I feel like Sunwalker should be an epic. Like, some decks that aren't that great just have double Sunwalker, and you're like, oh, this is probably gonna be okay. Just because at turn 6, that one card is probably gonna 1 for 3. How many cards can you say is gonna 1 for 3? And if we made Flame Strike, or like some of the stronger Paladin cards rares, because a lot of the strong Paladin cards are common. I think that's a problem. Same with Rogue, right? Like I think Rogue is way too powerful, because like I feel like Skulker should be an epic. I feel like Buccaneer and Undercity Valiant, all these cards, Goblin Mech, Barber Mech, what is it
Ooh,
called?
you think Undercity Valiant's overpowered?
I mean, not itself, but just that paired with every other strong 2 drop, like Undercity Valiant, Goblin. What is it called? Goblin Barber, Auto
Auto
barber,
barber?
yeah. I was like, I'm
Auto
missing a word
barber.
there.
Yeah.
Goblin auto barber is really strong. I think we can agree on that. Buccaneer's really, really strong. There's SI agent for cheap minions. There's even Defias ringleader, which is one of the still one of the strongest openers with coin, right? It's just
Mhm.
Yeah.
too many, and then beyond that, honestly, just hero powering by itself is probably like. Would you rather have a 1/2 dagger or a 3/2 on the board on turn two? Like, I don't know,
Exactly.
stuff like
There's not a big
that.
difference,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
so it just blows my mind that like you're giving rogue every single. Anyway, sorry, I got into this tangent about rogues, but that's what I think is part of the problem of rogue.
Yeah, you just hate every class, don't you, Hafu?
I just hate the top three. I mean, I have to play it now because I want to do well on the challenge, but I legit did not play it before the challenge came out because I just think they're broken.
That's the thing about Rogue, though. I feel like Rogue has a really high skill cap, and there's given like any hand or deck, like us three alone, we can come up with so many different lines of play
Yes.
for a given hand, right?
It's the most
And
flexible
you know,
boss.
exactly. There's so many, and there's just so much room for skill playing Rogue. And that's why I love to watch like good players play Rogue,
Hmm.
and I love to play Rogue myself because of it. I just feel like I have options, whereas if you're playing a lot of other classes, it's just like turn two you play your two drop, turn three you play your three drop. It's just you're just like watching the game happen instead of playing it yourself.
Right. But I do think there needs to be some sort of balance. If you're going to give Rogue that much flexibility and that much cheap removal, I don't think you can pair it with strong, like, minions that remove as well, especially with
Sure.
equal stats, right? I think a part of the problem of all these cards is, SI Agent is a 3/3 that does 2 damage. That's insane, right? Like, if it were a 2/3 that did 2, I think I would still play that card. Or, Undercity Valiant being a 3/2, Auto Barber being a 3/2. All these cards are fine without the additional text, and with the additional text, it just becomes absurd.
Yeah. So I think all right. So Hafu, I should have gone first because now I'm regretting it because I basically have the same answer as you. With a little bit of twist though, like I would definitely sort of balance for rarity as well. Like who doesn't want Keeper of Oldemon as like at least a
Legendary?
rare, right?
Legendary.
Like, yeah.
Dude, that's mustard.
I mean-
Mustard should be
Oh,
legendary. My God.
yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah. And like Coghammer is sort of
Ugh.
appropriate, right? It's an epic, but like like it's very rare and it's very
Yep.
powerful. So it's like okay, I can kind of see that, right? You don't see many Coghammers. The fact that Keeper is a common, it's so disgusting because you're like, well, he's played 3 Keepers and he could definitely have more.
And
right?
Truth Lovers, and Kings, and Consecrates.
I know. Yeah, yeah. But one thing that I think they should do in addition to balancing for rarity is like balance for sort of the identity of the class, which is something that if you only balance for constructed, you can lose sight of in the arena. Because even though there are sort of class identities for constructed, so like constructed druid, for example, it's about mana acceleration, it's about burst with savage and force, and it's about like flexible solid minions as well. I think in arena you have more of a rigid sort of identity, right? And that's part of playing in the arena. And you see as expansions move forward, this sort of identity is eroded. Like paladins didn't have sort of a way to deal with solitary big minions, right? You had Aldor, but that was a rare, and it was a little bit even more situational. But now with Keeper, it's kind of like they have it's basically a removal, right?
Sure.
So you're giving something to Paladin that they never had
Well, they had
before,
equality.
and you're seeing it creep in. Yeah, they have equality, but that's conditional on you. It's very
Right, that's true.
situational,
Yeah.
right? Like Keeper is non-situational. And you see it as well with like cards in the arena. Like Druids never had a hard removal to begin with, and then you get Recycle, and then you get Mulch, and then who knows when other expansions come out? Maybe they'll give them a common hard well, okay, I understand Naturalize is there, but yeah, maybe they'll give them something, and then suddenly the arena just like all these classes like mix and muddle together while we have this very clean constructed play, right? So that is something I worry about, but like that's something that maybe is a consideration in the future.
Yeah, I think there are definitely certain cards that make certain classes more flexible to fit into different archetypes. And generally, those are the classes that are more powerful in Arena. If you look at a class like Priest or Warrior, Priest, it's very hard to make an aggressive deck with. Same with Warrior, you know, you got your face decks once in a while, but mostly it's all Control Warrior, right? Getting value off the weapons. But with Rogue, Mage, uh, Paladin, you've seen aggro, mid-range, control in Arena. It's very flexible just it's from the draft to make a powerful deck because you have all these options, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, what do you guys think is in the future for Arena? Um, uh, do you guys think Arena will get more popular? Do you think once these changes come, if they do come, people will start to get more of an interest in Arena?
I think that eventually Blizzard will have to implement something for the arena, right? It won't just keep on continuing like it is right now. Whether it's a leaderboard, whether they implement standard in arena, whether they just they're gonna have to do something to spruce it up. And because I think what happened is they introduced Tavern Brawl, and Tavern Brawl is the true casual mode now.
Hmm.
So it opens up the competitive space for arena to
Very true.
be to be something more. So I do expect to see something in the arena.
Hafu?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure because I guess I mean I used to play World of Warcraft and they always balanced around PvE, and now that I'm older and I understand that the world doesn't just revolve around what I'm doing, yeah, I understand why. PvE is their fan base. That's where most people play, and the PvP side was
That's where the money is,
right.
huh?
That's where the money is exactly, and PvP was just like a subsection, and it was what most people did for fun. And even though it was really competitive for me, and I really enjoyed it, and there were people who enjoyed it, they never balanced it around PvP, which was one of the biggest
Well,
problems. And here we see it again, and in the same mode, right, called Arena. So I mean, I've seen it before, so I don't have any expectations. I don't think it's Blizzard's fault. Don't get me wrong. Like they should
yeah,
definitely
I
worry
mean,
about their bottom line, but
here's an interesting fact that may not even be a fact. This is just something that I've heard.
okay.
It's that
Nice.
the arena ticket or entry fee is the number one selling product for Hearthstone. Would you guys believe that? More than packs, and more
Number
than
one
like
selling thing
adventures.
or number one like
Number one grossing, number one money
income?
making.
No,
Number one
it's not. I don't
grossing.
believe
Oh
that.
wow.
You don't
I
believe
don't
that?
believe that.
I mean, it's got to be up there, right? So there is there, like Blizzard's not just Arena's not just like a free mode for a lot of people.
Yeah,
Right, but people love
definitely. And I
packs.
think that look, and I think that okay, if nothing else, improvements to the arena will also just need to happen because at a certain point, like you want to build up like one area of your game quite a lot, but it's going to be like a trickle down effect. At a certain point, they're also going to be like, hey, let's improve the arena a little bit, right? It's like let's introduce Tavern Brawl. Let's do this, let's do that, and then at a certain point, like maybe 3 improvements in constructed, and then suddenly they'll be like, all right, let's improve the
Well,
arena as well. Because if you're looking at your product overall, it's almost it's pretty bad to have this one area of your product lag
right.
behind.
I think sorry to bring this elsewhere. I heard in the past they actually approached me about this and asked me my opinion when I was at Blizzard headquarters years ago actually, that or maybe a few months ago, I don't remember. But they thought it was an issue.
Years or a few
Well, I
months?
think it was
That's a
because
pretty
I've been to Blizzard
Same
headquarters
thing.
many, many times now, and for Overwatch events or Hearthstone events or whatever. I live pretty close. But they were saying that they thought it was a giant issue in Arena that someone who just picks up Hearthstone and enters the arena can play one of us or Crip or Trump. Like one of the best players can play one of the worst players. And that's not a fun experience, right? You kind of want to make it.
Sure.
So they were thinking about, I think they were thinking about having like brackets. So the Ratsmas and the
I mean,
Merps would only play the other Ratsmas and the Merps, and then the new players would
isn't
get to
there
play.
already something like that implemented with
I
hidden
thought there
yellow
was.
and new accounts not being paired up against
I think that's just for the first
Yeah.
accounts that play
arena, period.
thousands? Mm.
I Yeah, I think that's for the first few. I get what you mean. So like you could play for like the first 3 days, and suddenly you get kicked out of like
The
the
newbie bracket.
the beginners
Hmm.
bracket, right? And then suddenly on your fourth day, you're facing up with Ratsma, and then suddenly you just
Yeah,
get stomped,
regardless,
and
one
that's
day
yeah,
or 1 week, it's more or less the same thing when it comes to us,
right,
right? When we know every card. I mean, I played this game in Taiwan, and the whole client was in Chinese, and I can't read Chinese, but I knew every card just by the picture,
Yeah.
right? Like, I think we're all at that point.
right,
Whereas when you're a new player, I mean, do you remember mousing over every card, reading the text, and trying to
Yeah.
understand it, and then you play it, and you're like, oh wait, that's not what it does. I mean, it's just night and day
right.
when you compare us to someone who just started. It's just knowledge, purely knowledge.
Another thing to add to that is I've noticed, and I'm sure you guys have as well, and I've gotten a lot from my own Twitch, community that has Arena gotten harder. I think the players playing Arena now are all hardcore players, and they just play for Arena, or like they're super into the Arena.
Yes.
There aren't that many newer players coming to Arena, as far as I've
Well, there
seen.
are, but they get wiped out early on. I mean,
Well, I don't
Yeah.
even see them at like game one. Like game one, it used to be the case where like a couple of years back it would just be like a cruise to like 5-0, right?
well, everyone got better,
But
period, including us, right? Like the skill
sure.
levels
Yes.
increased. I mean, that's what happens to every game, so it's no surprise
Mhm.
there. But I don't know. I still
I mean, the bigger
face.
problem is
Mhm.
that yeah, I mean, skill increase is good, but it'd also be nice to see newer players wanting to get better at the arena or wanting to try out
But
arena.
I think we already talked about
Inside.
it. It's like the casual mode, and people don't really.
Yeah.
There's no point when there's no
But
real reward. Like, oh, I got a 12 win once, and then they're done. Right? Like, I felt the same way.
right.
I mean, I felt very or unmotivated to keep trying when there was nothing on the line. If I go 12-0 5 times in a row, so be it. Or if I go, what
I
average?
don't think that would be so be it. I think that'd be pretty big news if you went 12-0 5 times
Okay,
in a row.
fine, fine, fine.
That'd be
12
huge
wins five
news.
times in a row, or 12 wins.
Hmm.
I don't know. We've all had insane streaks, no? Like, I don't know. I guess I no
Right.
longer care about this kind of stuff. But when you have like a challenge or a leaderboard, then you have a real reason to try. And for casual, like the 12 win key is, yeah, you got it once. Good job. And then you're done.
Exactly. That just like brings us to like another topic where there should be some kind of a reward or like card back, special card back or something for
I
arena,
really
right? That'd
liked
be pretty awesome.
Merps's idea, or Merps or Walk's idea, that you get 12 wins and then you get the
Hmm.
golden version of every copy. Like a copy of every card that you took 12 wins.
Oh,
So
I
you have
love
to
it. I
take
love
like
it.
target dummy to 12, but then you have to
Yeah,
keep picking
West.
it. Then you have to
I
keep
love
picking it
it.
to show your opponent
Right.
that you took it to 12.
Holy moly, that's great.
Because what's the point of having a golden like
Sure.
ancestor's call or
Hmm.
a golden gang up if you're not gonna use it after you've already gotten that 12
Exactly.
wins?
That's exactly what I thought too. It's like, yeah, nice. You have the golden wisp, but you're never gonna pick it again. But
Right.
yeah, that's great. So final thing, I just want to ask you guys, what if you could choose one arena meta that was your favorite, and tell me why? That'd be perfect. I'll go first. I actually like everything pre GVG, so I like classic. I like post Nax. I think people were playing slower decks. There was a lot more decision making. And that's when we all started to play Hearthstone as well, back in like open beta or like when the game was freshly released. That's when we all fell in love with the game and it was a lot of fun. What about you guys?
Hmm.
Ooh, I think you hit it with not GVG.
Yeah.
I'm basically fine with any. Like, I think GVG was the kind of. It was just terrible because you didn't have a lot of cards, and the cards that came out were super fast. It just like you gave an increased chance for Paladins to get muster for
Oh
battle,
yeah.
right? That was a little bit ridiculous there, and they still had a really good chance of getting their other cards. So I think if we are talking about just two expand like as long as you shorten it, I think any expansion is fine. And I think if you implement this sort of standard style, what you need to do is get rid of the bonus to just like two cards, right? Like
Mhm.
right now it's ridiculous. Paladin gets an increased offering rate to Keeper of Ultimon and Sacred Trial. And if Sacred Trial pops up, you just don't pick it, but you get an increased offering rate for like Keeper of Oldemon, and it's magnified because you only have these two cards that are class cards for Paladin that are multiplied. So I think that's one good thing about implementing this. You implement the standard in the arena, and suddenly, because of the smaller sort of card pool, you can sort of balance it out and even out the distribution, so you don't get like hunters getting extra dart traps and desert
Yay!
camels, and paladins getting
Hunters got
I like
worse.
Desert
paladins
Camel.
getting extra keepers.
I like Desert Camel.
I
It's a
mean,
pretty
do you
good
love
card.
it though?
Kind of. I've had some pretty
Yeah.
pretty good success
But there's a
with
difference
it.
between like a desert camel and a keeper of Alderman when we're talking about strengths, right? Like,
Oh,
yeah,
sure,
I'm not
sure,
saying it's a
sure.
terrible card, but when those two are your premium offers, I mean, it's a little bit different. Like when Glaivezuka was the premium
Sure.
offer, wasn't the meta a little bit different? I
gosh.
mean, you saw a lot more hunters because
Yeah.
you just get Glaivezuka on turn 2, and then you're dead. So,
And so what about you, Hafi? What was your favorite meta?
I mean, I liked the first meta just because at the beginning of anything, everyone's learning, and it's that curve to get to the top, right? Now, Arena's established. We have people, I mean, you can see who's the best based off of stats or whatever and results. And everyone's playstyle, like the three of us, for example, we play very differently, but we more or less agree on the strength of cards, more or less, right? And
Right.
back then, I mean, there were no tier lists, and you would see every card, literally every single card in Arena. You would lose to Light Spawn, double Divine Spirit. That's awesome.
I miss
What a
those
good
days,
way to
yeah.
lose, honestly. I mean, like, oh god, just the other day, I lost to a mage that Gra mashed me for 20 damage. I mean, it's just so random. Like, but that's such a good way to lose, and you don't see that because now you just lose to turn 4 Shredder into turn 5 Belcher into turn 6 Sunwalker, right? Like we all know this the optimal turns, and that's what we see because combos aren't as good. And I guess I missed that meta just because it was so random, and no one could really say this is the best card. I mean, there were people who did, but it wasn't like tried and true the way it is now. And
Very true.
now
Right.
you have players who just use, Hearth Arena, right? And they just kind of get their deck drafted for them, and I think drafting is half the fun. Like I think I have more fun drafting than playing personally. So it makes me sad to see. Okay, they're just gonna pick what this robot tells them to pick.
Sadly, though, I mean, it seems like even if we go back to that sort of to those cards, like what you're describing, that's
that's what
lost
I'm saying. It has
forever,
nothing
right?
to do with that meta, but it was
Yeah.
just the fact that during that time, none
Right.
of it existed, and there was a lot more room for innovation, and you could kind of learn on your own pace. Now you have to learn, or you're gonna get your butt kicked by by the strong cards, and
Yeah.
you learn very quickly that like a Silverback Patriarch is really bad, which that's good, but you also don't really get to play with some of the fun stuff in Hearthstone, I think.
I will say something about the post GVG meta though. Like even though it seems that we all kind of like how Hearthstone used to be at the very start with the classic set, I think one thing that we can be said that is a positive is that post GVG, this is where people started to evolve their mindset when playing Arena. We moved past the one for one, two for one value game, and now we start to understand tempo more as a group. Because in the past, like I would pick like a fireball over a Scarlet, and the stream would go crazy. They'd be like, "Why didn't you take that fireball? Like why wouldn't you take every single spell offered?" But now there's a lot more skill in the drafting where you kind of have to make a cohesive deck that just works, rather than just take power
Definitely.
cards. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is one
Yeah.
positive that came out of it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Do you guys have anything you want to say?
No, Rats, thanks for having us on. It's been a lot of fun. Like, I mean, I'm just a huge nerd and love talking about Hearthstone,
Hey,
so this has been fun for me.
Thank you guys so much for coming
Thank you.
on. Truly, it's been a fun conversation. And if the people that are watching this want to find you guys, where can they find you?
Well, they can find me along with Adwicta at twitch.tv/ADWCTA. We also have a YouTube username ADWCTA. And Hafo, I know you're going to comment on this and how it makes no sense, but that's the way it is.
No, so I always tease Merps because, you can find Merps' stream on Adwocta's channel, and it's...
I told him so many times to make his own stream, but
we are getting the name changed soon, so this might be all like very confusing.
Anyway, you can find me twitch.tv/itshafu, ITSHAFU.
Awesome. And guys, I'm Ratsma, your Temple Storm Arena Specialist. You can find me at twitch.tv/Ratsma. Thanks for watching, and see you guys later.
Peace.
See ya.